Hey folks, this is Star vs. the Forces of Evil, episode 12, Interdimensional Field Trip and Marco Grows a Beard. This was a pretty good pair of episodes. Nothing outstanding to them, but solid. I did like how the two of them reflected each other in that ultimately they were both about, they were both about learning to be a leader, or rather I should say what it takes to be a leader, bad leadership versus good leadership. And they were also both about Star learning a lesson about her limitations and capabilities. Learning that her standard approach isn't always the best one. So, in the first part, that was just a fun world that she took those kids to. I loved the yarn monster, string monster I think they called it. I loved the teacher's reaction to discovering that she's going to live to be 400. And basically responding, oh wait, that means I'm still a teenager. I really, it had a lot of cool visual things going on, a lot of, very imaginative, the things that they encountered in that world. I particularly loved the vortex that, created multiple of him. I forget the guy's name, but the kid with braces and glasses that jumped into the vortex and got sort of multiplied. I'm a little curious as to how the kids got back to normal when they got home, but I guess Star, magic. But yeah, they, the main thrust of the thing though was Star learning that let everyone do whatever they want, whenever they want, may not be the best approach in a dangerous environment that they don't know anything about. Which is to say that it may not be the best approach with kids, because kids are basically always in a dangerous environment that they don't know anything about, because that's kind of what being a kid is. As you grow up, you learn stuff, and that makes the environment less dangerous. Hopefully, if you're lucky. But yeah, for kids, anarchy may not be the best approach. But yeah, Star learns a little lesson about that, and then she and the teacher save the day. I liked that it was the paperclip that proved the undoing of the string monster. It's a nice callback to the incredibly boring paperclip museum. Which, I have to say, there's few things that I find more boring than Museum of Object or History of Object. I don't know, I'm sure for some people it's absolutely fascinating, but for me, something like, I live in Washington, D.C., we have a lot of museums. I believe the most popular, might be the second most popular, is the Air and Space Museum, which to me is mind-numbingly boring. I loved space stuff as a kid. I still am interested in stuff like astronomy and so forth, but frankly, the Air and Space Museum is just a pile of airplanes and discarded space shuttles and rockets and stuff, and it's just kind of boring because it's just things, I like the Natural History Museum, which is the one with the dinosaurs, but the ancient aquatic life is even better. because those aren't just engineered things that some person made to perform a function. That's the history of life on Earth. That's cool. I like, the museums that show stuff from different cultures and history and so forth. That's cool. I like art museums, because art. But I just find manufactured things to be not that interesting. So I really feel those kids' agony at being forced to go to a paperclip museum. Because we had to go to frickin' Air and Space all the goddamn time when I was a kid. And the teachers will be like, oh, it's, a field trip, it's fun. And it's like, no, it's not. It's just a bunch of airplanes hanging from the ceiling. And I don't think the Air and Space Museum even... Yeah, no. The Air and Space Museum did not have an IMAX theater yet. Even if they did, they wouldn't have taken us to anything good. So yeah, it was not a great time. So I feel for those kids. On the other hand, yeah, thrusting them into a terrifying environment with no guidance, they get themselves into trouble. Excuse me. Interwoven with that is Marco's reluctance to talk to Jackie Lynn, which, I remain very meh on that whole thing. At least it means that they're not pairing up Marco and Star, which is the worst conceivable thing that could happen to this show. No, I could conceive of worse things that could happen to this show, but it's the worst thing that could happen to this show that's reasonably likely of ever happening. So at least it prevents that, but it's still boring. But mostly the episode, it was visually interesting. I really enjoyed all the stuff with the teacher in the Troll Museum. I loved that the recorded announcer voice was actually just this spider thing. There was good stuff there. The second episode was a lot of fun too. It started as a pretty standard Star's magic goes out of control. Though I really enjoyed, it was predictable, but I still really enjoyed the things she created, telling her how much they loved her, and then screaming in agony as she dismissed them. That amused me. Mostly because, 20 years ago when the Pokemon TV show was new, a friend of mine and I were watching it, and just as Ash would hold out the Pokeball, and I'm assuming everyone on Earth has seen the show, but I don't know if they still animate it this way, because I haven't watched it in 15 years. Probably more. But Ash would, tell the thing to, return and hold out his Pokeball, and this red beam would come out, and the Pokemon would glow red, and then get absorbed back into the Pokeball. Just as the Pokemon starts to glow red, I think it was a Pidgey, and in this kind of, I can't do the voice, but in this kind of Pidgey-sounding voice, my friend screamed, "It burns!" And after that, I could never watch the Pokemon being, recalled into their ball without laughing at the idea that it's horribly painful for them. Which is exactly the same joke here, so I appreciated that that joke lives on, here in the 2010s. The bulk of the episode, it's at first just a Star doesn't, Star creates problems with her magic, has to fix them. Pretty much the most standard plot the show has. And then Ludo shows up to steal the wand, which is the other most standard plot the show has. But the collision of the two is actually really interesting because it became a thing about, like, Ludo is this, my go-to example is Skeletor, because I watched He-Man when I was a little baby Jed. And, the incompetent villain who's constantly haranguing his minions, but is really just frankly terrible at being a villain. The 80s were full of them. Your Cobra Commander, your Shredder, just these villains, that the leader was completely incompetent and blamed his failure to come up with plans, or the fact that, quite simply, the narrative force was against them and the heroes were always going to win, on the minions, and was constantly haranguing them. And it's like, why do the minions put up with this loser? And here we finally get an answer. They don't. Taffy has been working with this for a while. It's been the closest thing the show's had to an ongoing plotline. Taffy slowly turning Ludo's minions against him. Because unlike Ludo, Taffy is a competent villain. Which of course means trouble for Star and Marco, because they've never had to deal with a competent villain before. But yeah, Ludo has now been kicked out of his own castle by his minions. But on the other hand, they're all now working for Taffy, who I suspect is not actually going to be more fun to work for. I suspect that now that he has the power, he's not going to be quite so nice to the people who he climbed on top of to get it. And I love his look. It fits very well. This is something I've been thinking about, like, I keep thinking about it and then not mentioning it, is the degree to which Taffy looks like your standard model evil 80s corporate executive. The Gordon Gekko kind of look, with the suit and the slicked back hair, and, his being a lizard might even be a reference to Gordon Gekko. If you're not familiar, because again, I feel like some of the references I use are, I don't know, I'm feeling old lately. Some of the references I use may be a bit dated. Gordon Gekko, if you're not familiar, was this figure from an 80s movie, which I'm actually blanking on the name right now because I never actually bothered to see it, but it was kind of ubiquitous in the culture. And he's kind of the evil 80s corporate executive. He was actually, I believe, the hero of his movie, but, he was going around saying things like, "Greed is good." That's like his most common quote. And just generally being your standard issue 80s, libertarian, capitalist, greedy asshole, who's completely self-centered and just wants power and control and wealth. And is full of bullshit rationalizations for why that's actually the way he should be. That's Taffy. And I love that because, of course, the 80s presented us with all these incompetent Ludo-style villains, while people like Taffy were walking around in real life running the world. So now, let's watch as Taffy takes away the power for himself. Let's watch as the real villain steps in. I like it. It's, for lack of a better word, meta. Because, of course, all the companies making cartoons were run by Taffys. But yeah. That's mostly what this pair of episodes was doing, particularly the latter, was setting up for what I believe is the finale next time. So I'm guessing the finale will be, oh hey, Taffy's, all of a sudden Ludo's minions are being commanded by someone competent. I think it's quite plausible the episode could begin with Star losing the wand and them having to take it back. Hence the setup here of Star having to learn to function without her wand and having to be reminded that she's capable of kicking ass without her wand. It's possible that some kind of a team up with Ludo might happen. Because I know from the list that next episode only has one. Like, I didn't see what it was, but I saw that next episode has only one title, not two. So I'm assuming it's another, 22-minute segment instead of two 11-minute segments. It seems to me like Ludo temporarily joining the team is probably the best way to make it last the whole time and keep humor going the whole time, because of course he's an absolutely terrible person to have on your team, but they may need his help. Like, for example, if they have to get into the castle. Who knows? Should be an interesting time either way. I'm looking forward to it. And then, of course, once that's done, so next week that'll be the episode. A week after that will be a panel video. A week after that, I start Steven Universe Season 2. I'm really looking forward to that. So, I'll see y'all then. Bye.